my name is Chris from Penguin Cupcake Towers, and today I'm going to show you some techniques on how to decorate your cupcake stands. Today I'm going to be working with this. This is called our Humboldt Tower. It holds roughly 2 dozen cupcakes. We have a much larger version of this as well, which we call the Emperor Cupcake Tower, and that one can hold over 200 cupcakes. Also keep in mind that you can use the same techniques that I'm about to show you on the cardboard cupcake towers, but your results aren't going to be nearly as good. And the reason for that is that cardboard is never really flat, even when you first get it. It warps for a lot of reasons, but it's basically just the nature of the material. Also, if you're going to cover it, like I'm about to show you how to do, that tends to make it warp even worse. And finally, cardboard isn't rigid enough for the larger stands, so if you put a lot of cupcakes on it, you'll notice that it bows really significantly. And it's for those reasons that we use plastic. Our stands are made out of a 6mm corrugated plastic, and what that does is it gives you a perfectly flat surface to work with that won't warp, and it's also very strong. And that's particularly important when you get into the larger stands. It prevents them from bowing under the weight. And once you put 200 cupcakes on a stand, and then you put your wedding cake at the very top, you just want to be absolutely certain that it's not going to crush or collapse for any reason. So that's why we use plastic. Alright, enough of that. Let's take a look at our stand. Okay, so here we have all our materials. And first up we have wrapping paper. This is what I'm going to use to cover our stand. And I really like using wrapping paper for several reasons. It's inexpensive. It's available in a wide variety, so you can get it for every occasion. Say you're doing a kid's birthday party and they have their heart set on SpongeBob. You can easily find that online. Wrapping paper is great because it's so wide. The largest tier of our largest tower is 28 inches wide. So if you have a material that's less than that, what you're going to have to do is create a seam in the center, and that means lining up the 2 patterns, and that can be kind of tricky. So if you pick a wide material like wrapping paper, you don't even have to worry about it. Wrapping paper is also easy to clean. You're going to notice when you use your stand that they tend to get frosting on them. So if you want to reuse it, picking a material that's easy to clean is going to be very helpful. And finally, should you decide that you want to redecorate your tower for another occasion, if you use wrapping paper, you can glue another sheet of it directly over the top of the previous one, and you can't see through it. So it works really excellent. If you don't use wrapping paper, some other options are fabric. I've used fabric before, and it looks really nice, but it doesn't clean as well. I wouldn't recommend it if you're going to have a high contrast between the color of your frosting and the color of your fabric, because chances are you're going to get frosting on it and then it's going to be really obvious. You can also spray paint our stands. We've done that with really good results. So you can spray paint them any color you want. I don't recommend spray painting the cardboard cupcake stands, because what they tend to do is they just suck the paint up, and it gives you a real uneven, blotchy finish. It also causes the cardboard to warp. And next up I have spray glue. I highly recommend getting some of this. The reason is, if you try to use other types of glue, you're going to notice that it wrinkles. You'll see wrinkles in your fabric or your material. This completely prevents that. So I got this at a local craft store. It was pretty inexpensive. Quick note with this stuff is a little bit goes a long ways. So you want to spray it on very lightly. Don't spray it on like it's spray paint. Next I have an X-Acto knife. We're going to use this to trim around the outside of our tiers after we've attached our fabric, or wrapping paper in this case. I like X-Acto knife better than scissors because you can cut closer. We also need to cut out the little holes where the tabs fit together, and X-Acto knife just works much better. Next up I have ribbon. We're going to use this to edge all of our tiers. The tiers are 6mm thick, which is roughly 1/4 inch. This happens to be 3/8 inch, so it's wider than we need. But that's okay, because what we're going to end up doing with it is we're going to glue the top edge of the ribbon with the top edge of the tier. So if you get a wider ribbon, it's just going to hang down farther below the tiers. And last up, I have a glue gun, and that's what I'm going to use to attach a ribbon. You can buy ribbon that already has adhesive backing, but I've never used it before. And the reason is it tends to be really expensive. Not a big deal for the size tower that we're going to use today, but our larger tower takes almost 20 feet of ribbon to cover the entire circumference. So in that case, I would recommend just saving the money and sticking with the glue gun like I'm about to do. Okay, let's get started decorating. Okay, so the first step of our process is going to be attaching our wrapping paper to each of our tiers. And as you can see, I've already cut the paper into roughly the right size for the tier. And what I'm going to do is, leaving the paper face down like this, I'm going to take my tier outside and I'm going to spray it with spray glue. You don't really want to do that in your house because it kind of gets everywhere. And then I'm going to bring it in, and making sure that there's no wrinkles in my paper, I'm going to press the tier down and let it dry. Once it's dry, I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm going to run around the outside, cutting off all the excess material. I'm then going to cut out the material that covers each of these holes, because the tabs need to be able to fit in them. Before you glue it down, if you have a wrapping paper that has stripes or a repeating pattern, in this case I don't have to do it because you're not going to be able to tell, but if I had stripes or a repeating pattern, I need to make sure that the stripes in my paper match up with the stripes on the plastic. And I don't know if you can see that on the video, but there's very faint lines on here that run along with the corrugation. And you need to make sure that those line up together. And that way, once you assemble your tower, all your stripes are going to be in the same direction. If you neglect this step, you're going to wind up with them at kind of strange angles, and that's going to look really weird. Keep in mind though that if you do that, you can glue another sheet of wrapping paper directly over your old one to correct the problem. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for each of my tiers, and then while those are drying, we can work on step number 2. Okay, so I just realized I forgot to mention a couple things as I was cutting off the excess on each tier. On your topmost tier, you don't want to cut out the holes for the slots, because since there's nothing above it, you just want to leave that nice and smooth. And on the lower ones, you only need to cut out the slots for the innermost holes, because those are the ones that are going to be coming from the top. The rest go in from the bottom, so you can leave them covered at the top and it won't make any difference because this tab doesn't go all the way through. And a nice trick in order to cut the inside holes out is I just take the whole thing and I hold it up against the window, and as the light shines through it, then I can see where the holes are, and it makes them very easy to cut out. Okay, for the next step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover each of the sport pieces in wrapping paper. And you don't have to do this step, but I think it looks good, so we're going to go ahead and do it today. And what I've already done, as you can see, is I've cut my wrapping paper into a 4-inch strip. And the reason for that is that I know that each of the support pieces is 4 inches tall, not counting the tabs. Now we don't want to cover the tabs because what that's going to do is it's just going to make it thicker, and that's going to make it hard to fit into the slots. Also, if we cover it just from pushing it into the slots, what it's going to do is it's going to peel off the material, and that's going to look bad. So we're going to take our 4-inch strips. I'm going to spray glue all over both sides of my support piece, and I'm going to lay it right down on there. Line it up good, and then I'm going to wrap the wrapping paper around it like this on both sides. And that way it's going to cover each side and the ends. And I'm going to let that dry, and once that's dry, I'm going to take my X-Acto knife again, and I'm going to cut out this section right here where the notch is so they can fit together. Before I spray this with spray glue, I don't really want to get glue on the tabs since I'm not covering them anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little piece of masking tape, and you can use whatever kind of tape you happen to have, and I'm just going to stick them like that right over each of the tabs. And I'm going to fold it around so it covers both sides. And what that's going to do is it's going to keep the glue off so they're not sticky. And I'm going to do that for all the tabs. This is the bottom piece, so it only has tabs on one side. All the rest of the supports are going to have tabs on the top and bottom. So go ahead and cover all 4 of those, spray it, and stick them on. And I'm going to go ahead and do that for all of our support pieces and let those dry, and we can move on to step number 3. Okay, I got my glue gun warming up here, and the very last step is attaching the ribbon to the perimeter of our tiers. And in order to do that, I'm going to take my glue gun, I'm going to put a very small dab of glue every 2 or 3 inches or so, all the way around the outside. And as I put the dab of glue on, I will press on the ribbon. And what I want to do is I want to align the top edge of the ribbon with the very top of the tier. So it'll be flush on top all the way around. And that way, if I use a thicker ribbon, it'll just hang down farther below the tier. And I'm just going to work my way all the way around. Okay, so here's the final result. And this took me about 45 minutes to complete. I was also operating the camera at the time, so I'm sure you can do it a little faster. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial and that you use it. I think it's a great opportunity to decorate your cupcake stands and make them look as unique as your events. So if you'd like to contact us, we can be reached through our website at www.penguincupcaketowers.com.